Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rebecca Lubert, and I'm the Director of Career and Business Engagement with the University of Minnesota Alumni Association. Thank you and welcome to today's webinar. Today's webinar is Ask Your Recruiter Job Search Strategies, and we have a panel of recruiters that I'll introduce in just a moment. But before we get started, we always like to thank our members and donors of the Alumni Association for powering our alumni webinar series. So thank you so much for your support. You may also be interested in a number of master classes that we now offer to our alumni and friends of the Alumni Association. And as you can see here, we have a number of them with registrations coming to a quick close shortly. So we have a master class on job search strategies. We also have a master class on applying to graduate school and a master class on LinkedIn. To learn more about those opportunities, you may go to umnalumni.org/virtual. There also are a number of webinars that you may also enjoy if you are interested in today's topic. So we have Ask Your Career Coach, Is Graduate School Right for Me? Ask Your Recruiter, LinkedIn, and Ask Your Recruiter about interviewing strategies. And today's webinar will be recorded and shared with all registrants after today. So you should expect an email from me within about 2 to 3 business days with the recording of today's webinar and any resources that we share today. All right, so if you're tuning in today and you'd like to tune in also by phone, perhaps you may dial the number on your screen and then you may listen by phone. And so without further ado, I'll be introducing our alumni, our panelists rather, today. So we have here Maura Bremer Peterson is a lead national recruiter for Boom Lab, a junior consulting development program with the Three Bridge Solutions, a Minneapolis-based IT consulting firm that delivers large-scale technology projects at local Fortune 500 companies. Maura is a 2015 graduate of Gustavus Adolphus College, where she majored in communication and minored in dance and French. Maura has been at Boom Lab Three Bridge for just over 5 years in a variety of roles, including project management, consultant, recruiting coordinator, campus recruiter, and national recruiter. Currently, she leads and supports Boom Lab's national recruiting efforts across the Twin Cities, St. Louis, Raleigh, Atlanta, Tampa, and New Jersey. Maura lives near Lake Nokomis with her husband and 4-month-old husky puppy, Honeybee. Additionally, she is embarking on a Master of Organizational Leadership program at St. Kate's beginning this fall. She loves recruiting, career development, and helping candidates find great roles. She is thrilled to be here today to offer support and guidance in any way she can. Thank you and welcome, Maura. All right, next I'd like to introduce Diane Steele. Diane Steele is the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Twin Cities-based Steele Recruiting since its founding in 2008. Steele is a respected industry leader, and for over 20 years, she has been delivering strategic and innovative solutions to many Fortune 500 companies, as well as the most talented senior administrative professionals in the Twin Cities and across the U.S. Steele previously served as the Vice President of Executive Recruiting for Ballinger Leafball, Director of Talent for the YMCA of Greater Twin Cities, and Branch Manager at Manpower. She founded the Twin Cities Executive Assistant Association in March of 2020, a space for executive assistants to connect, create, and communicate and build community. A Twin Cities native, Steele received a bachelor's degree in marketing and psychology from the University of Minnesota. She also holds a certificate as a certified worksite wellness specialist from the National Wellness Institute, and she serves as at the University of Minnesota as a CCAPS student mentor and an alumni service, and received an alumni service award, and is a member of the Alumni Service Award Committee. Thank you and welcome, Diane. All right, so next I'm going to have both Maura and Diane tell me a little bit more about yourself and your role.
Fantastic. I'll kick it off. Thanks, Rebecca, and thanks all. So excited to be here and excited to see so many attendees on today's call. Like Rebecca said, I have spent basically my entire career with Boom Lab and Three Bridge here in the Twin Cities. We spend a lot of time on campus at the U of M. So if you're a recent grad, you may be familiar with us, but the company itself has been around for just almost exactly 11 years. So if you were at the U before that, you may not know us, but we do both junior and senior consulting in the Twin Cities and across the country. And that's what's taken up most of my role in the last year and a half. So as Rebecca mentioned, I started with the company as a consultant, a project management associate, spent about a year and a half consulting with local clients on IT project delivery assignments, and then made a transition into recruiting exactly 4 years ago. So I've been in a variety of roles, spent time on campus, and now most recently as we've grown as an organization, my focus has shifted really across the US. So helping ensure that our Twin Cities market is still as busy as ever, but also helping to hire new Boom Lab consultants, associate consultants in some of those cities that Rebecca mentioned. So St. Louis, New Jersey, Atlanta, Raleigh, Tampa. Each market is a little bit different as we grow across the country. So I spend so many of my days in interviews, now all via Zoom, FaceTime, Skype, and Teams, but still really enjoy connecting with candidates each day. Our goal and drive at Boom Lab 3 Bridge is ensuring that we are building our consultants' careers. So any chance I get to do that is really rewarding for me, and helping bring new consultants into the organization is how I spend most of my time. So just honored to be here today and really excited to dig into some of this information with all of you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today. So thank you, Rebecca, for inviting me. It's always great to give back to my alma mater, the University of Minnesota. And as she had so gracefully gave you a background of what I do, I've been in recruiting for over 20 years. Fell into this role just because it just happened in my life, and I've never looked back. It's an amazing opportunity, and what an honor to help people identify wonderful opportunities that bring them to their career success and joy. I have taken that through roles at Manpower, where I managed 2 downtown offices in St. Paul and Minneapolis. From there, did a short stint with a large nonprofit working inside an HR department, which was wonderful. Then I went into nonprofit executive recruitment, and then now I am on my own, and I specialize in executive assistant placements, which is that right-hand person to CEOs, presidents, and executives here in the Twin Cities, of which we are expanding nationally, and love working with that genre and with the executive C-suites to find that perfect match to help their businesses move forward. So as I said, I am an alum, and I love to give back, and I do mentoring for university students. And I also have a fun fact, a university student at the U myself, my daughter. And another fun fact on me is in 3 weeks, my oldest daughter is having twin boys. So,
Oh, congratulations.
Oh
I know, twin boy. So that's just a little about me, but thank you for having me here today.
Yes, thank you so much, Diane, for the introduction, and Maura as well. I'd also like to note that we did have a third panelist today. Many of you may have saw that in the registration. We had Kelly Ullman with Wells Fargo. Unfortunately, she was unable to make it today. She's not feeling under the weather, so we hope she feels better soon, and send her our well wishes. All right, so moving forward. All right. So what advice do you have for job applicants in regards to the application process? How do they bring their A game? What advice do you have for them?
Sure. Yeah, I'll kick it off. And I think this will be great because Diane and I bring different perspectives to this. So hopefully we'll have some breadth to our responses. But I think in reflecting on this one, so often, since I work more with junior candidates, but not always, I think for me, one of the biggest pieces of advice that I give to candidates as they're beginning the application process is to really look at the job description, job posting, or employer that you're interested in, and tailor your application to that. I think when I was in my undergrad and even going into post-grad years, I didn't know that you could pull up a job description, look at it next to your resume, and maybe highlight some of the things that really align to the bullets listed on the posting. That doesn't mean that you have to write anything that you haven't done or that every application has to be perfectly tailored. But when I'm going through applicants, I'm trying to be as efficient as possible. So I'm looking at resumes and cover letters and LinkedIn profiles to see, okay, what does this person have that aligns with what we're looking for with our job description? So for me, that biggest step, I think, is when you're beginning the process to look thoughtfully at what you're applying to, think about why it's a good fit, how you'll demonstrate, what you have done that's relevant, and then really highlighting that on the resume to get into that first step. I think there are different skills at each step, the application, the interview, as you get to the offer stage. But I think in that early stage, ensuring that you understand what you're applying to and you're ready to speak to how you're a fit is that first step you can take when you're subbing over a resume to a recruiter or potential employer. Those are my first thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maura. Yes, all very good advice. I think the thing to remember during the application process is the application process begins with the first word when you respond to, if it's an email, to the last word or conversation that you have with somebody on the phone. So every single step is so important. So this is your time to shine, and I put it into the perspective of, think of yourself going out in the middle of the stage, and you're getting an introduction and the curtain opens. Everything you do will be watched. It's a little bit of pressure, but to remember that this is your time to market yourself, so everything has to be A game, from your cover letter to your application to your resume to your email correspondence. When you're sending something to somebody, make sure that you're using proper communication on the emails, proper sentence formation. Everything is part of the application process. So being concise, neat, and professional every single step of the way, even to the point of if you are sitting down in a company, which someday hopefully that'll happen, talking to the receptionist. That is part of the interview, because believe me, the recruiter will say, well, what did you think? So that is part of the interview. So just know that everything you do from A to Z until you get an offer letter and sign the dotted line, that it is very important to market yourself 100% professional and concise and neatness at every point. And also just know that you are your best advocate for finding a job. So you need to market yourself both on your resume as well as your LinkedIn profile. They should match, and really focus in on what it is that you're good at and where you want to go with your career. And if you need help, always look for help too, because I think there's some necessary help that some people need with maybe discerning those different things. But I'll just reiterate that concise and neatness and professionalism from A to Z is probably your best bet when you're looking for a job.
So error-free application, error-free resume, cover letter, those sorts of things.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, and typically I reserve questions to the end by all the participants, but I did see one that seemed really relevant to what we're talking about right now. And the question is about what is the best way or our best platform to use to tailor your resumes for specific jobs. And thinking about this could be really tedious and time consuming, but curious to know your thoughts in terms of like, what's the best way to really tailor your materials? What does that mean?
Yeah, that is a good question. And I know, I think the word tedious is accurate. It is time consuming. I think, especially in this current climate, applying for jobs, interviewing, putting yourself out there, it is exhausting. There's no way around that. I think from my perspective, and maybe Diane has something else, I don't think there is a magic tool out there. I think there's great resources. We'll touch on this a little bit later. As an employer, we use LinkedIn really primarily for most of our job posting and applicants. But I think taking the time to be really intentional about what you are applying to is a way to maybe cut down on some of that tedious work. Certainly more than ever, we want to cast a wide net, but I think being really thoughtful about what am I actually excited about? Where do I think I'll have most success? You don't have to apply to every job that comes across, your LinkedIn or Indeed or whatever job site you're looking at. But I think being really intentional about which ones will get your focus and how much you'll tailor it. And knowing, again, you don't have to make your resume, you know, a line by line match for the job description, but pulling out or rearranging certain things to highlight what's relevant is the game changer. So I wish there was a magical, easy solution. I think it can be time consuming, but certainly worth it. I think narrowing your search a little bit and getting really thoughtful about where to focus your time and energy is the only easy solution I have that comes to mind.
Great.
So dovetailing off of that, I always recommend, if you are unsure about your resume after you've done some thoughtful thinking about the career path that you wanted to take, or maybe you're changing careers, Google the position that you are trying to achieve. So say, for example, it's executive assistant to CEO. I would put that in Google, executive assistant to CEO resume samples, and you will get a plethora of amazing resume samples. And then from there, you can just look at how they're formatted, some of the information that's included, and then take that information, match it up with a job description or two that you see out there that you thought, you know, this is something that I want to pursue. And so now you're building your marketing pieces. You can also Google cover letters for the specific job. So again, it's just getting the verbiage, making sure that you're highlighting the keywords, because keywords are very important, especially if there's applicant tracking systems that rank and stack candidates' resumes according to the keywords. So again, Google is a great resource for creating a resume and getting concise, but then also looking at the job description and pulling out those keywords and making sure that they're included in your resume. And last resort, if you need help writing a resume, there's plenty of resources out there to help you write resumes.
Definitely great advice. Okay, let's see, move on to the next question. This is a very good question. I think lots of folks have this top of mind right now. Are companies still hiring during COVID-19? And what does that look like right now for your respective companies, or just maybe others you may have networked with or know more about?
Sure. Yeah, I think the good news is yes, absolutely. Companies are still hiring. There is still a demand for strong candidates. And one of the benefits I think that we have at Boom Lab 3 Bridge is being in consulting. We have some insight into what corporations look like right now around the metro area. Our clients are those Fortune 500 companies here in the Twin Cities and in those other markets. And I think, you know, each industry is a little bit different and has different demands. As we see these economic downturns or global pandemics, you know, things ebb and flow. So I think for us, what we saw is certainly that things were quieter initially, that companies were more restrictive with budgets. They were maybe more hesitant to start new projects in the midst of all of this. And I think it was quiet, a little quieter than usual this summer. I think the good news from my perspective is that I have felt very busy, especially the last month or so as we head into fall. I think there has been a shift where companies that maybe had paused some of their funding or new projects are ready to ramp those back up. So certainly it's still a challenging time to be job searching, no doubt about it. There are more candidates out there, but we are absolutely hiring. Many of our clients are hiring. I think it's a little bit of a different landscape. We're doing more remote interviewing and then also remote onboarding, that you may start with a new employer sitting in your home office or in your living room or dining room table. But we're navigating that with our clients. We found some really thoughtful and creative ways to get people integrated into new projects and company culture, even remotely. And that's been a really positive piece of this. So I would say, yes, certainly we're not, you know, maybe as busy as we were pre-pandemic, but things are picking up. I've been very busy the last month with new project opportunities, especially within the junior consulting space and technology projects. So I'm hopeful about what's ahead. I think being prepared for, you know, virtual settings like this is one of the key pieces right now, knowing you might interview and start a company and be with a company for a few months before you head into a physical office space.
I agree as well. When this happened back in March, people froze a bit and projects were put on hold. A lot of the clients that I had were tapped the brakes a bit because we just didn't know what was happening, nor did they with their businesses. However, companies are in business. They're still working. They're working hard. They're working different. They're working remotely. They're finding a new way to do business. There are some companies that are working in-house and some that have a mix, just like the schools are right now, and some that are 100% virtual. But the good news is companies are hiring. But knowing that when there were cuts that needed to be made within companies, there are people in the organizations who might have had to take on extra responsibilities within the company because of funding to keep people hired and keep people on board. So that being said, I think that companies are making very thoughtful and careful hires. With everything, even more so than before. Whereas flashback 9 months ago, it was, who can we get? Who's out there? Let's just find somebody. Now it's going to take a little bit more time the company to make those decisions. It's going to make it more important for you to bring your A game to every single, again, part of that recruiting process, because people are very thoughtful and they're taking the time. It's a little bit more complex when you're talking about onboarding people and having them trusting people to work remotely. We don't know this person, so are we okay with bringing on a new person and having them start working from their homes? And so it's a different level of recruitment where they're digging down a little bit further, but at the same time, again, people are hiring, and let's just be very hopeful that the trend continues and that 2021 is even stronger than we're at right now.
It sounds sort of like you're looking for more evidence of certain skills in terms of maybe being self-sufficient and maybe being more driven or self-driven, those sorts of skills. And can you talk a little bit more about that, Diane?
Well, I've found candidates that are used to working in an office, and now companies are remote and they've had to make changes because they lost their position at the company due to COVID. And now they've been brought on to a position that's now 100% virtual, and they don't like it. And so they're looking for a new job. It's one of those things where I think when you're interviewing and understanding, okay, what are the complexities? How are you going to manage, in my case, supporting a president or an executive when you don't have that one-on-one time? Do you understand the communication skills, or do you need resources to then up your communication abilities, which is including a lot of technology. Microsoft Teams is becoming very popular. There's just a plethora of different things that people have to incorporate into their work world as part of their support for working in a new environment. So when it comes to interviewing, I think being able to articulate that I am very comfortable working in a situation where it's uncertain, where I am not a part of the culture, and this is how I can show you that I can be engaged, that I can be responsible. Here are some examples. So just to have the verbiage on how you anticipate to stay connected to the company, that they can trust you with this opportunity to be a successful person, and then transition back into the role, be open to that if they so choose, that they will move people back on campus when things turn around here in the near future.
That just sounds so hard. It's kind of like that flexibility and adaptability.
Exactly.
Both at the same time. Maura, did you want to add anything to that piece of the conversation?
Oh, I think Diane covered it. I think beyond that, maybe if you are someone who's in between positions right now, taking the time to figure out what tools or certifications might be out there that could make your resume look a little bit more robust or stand out in a crowd, since it is, maybe a little more competitive. I'm sure everyone is taking full advantage as they can if they're out of work, but Seeing those free trainings that are out there on different LinkedIn learning sites or other areas, researching what tools might be relevant to what you're doing. I think that's the other piece I've been looking for right now is, okay, in this time between roles, what has someone been working on?
Very good. Yes, that's a great point. Moving on to our next question. Where do you typically post your job opportunities or seek out talent? Like, where should people be finding these opportunities? Where are you looking for talent?
Sure. Yeah, so I touched on this earlier, but really primarily for myself and for the other recruiters at Boom Lab 3Bridge, LinkedIn is really the place and the tool for us. It has a ton of job seekers on it, really great functionality from the recruiter side to post jobs and look for applicants, to search for keywords like we touched on earlier. Sometimes the hiring that I'm doing is not just sifting through incoming applicants, but I'm going out to find strong candidates, searching their profiles by, graduation date, area of study, different tools or technologies they might have. So LinkedIn is really a powerful tool for us. We do some recruiting for more technical roles on dice.com. And then occasionally work with other websites to post our positions. But for us, it's our company websites, LinkedIn, and then occasionally those more technical resources. I know other employers and recruiters use some of the other tools like Indeed and Monster. But for us, for myself, I spend probably 60% of my day in LinkedIn. So that's really the tool for me and the place to be when I'm looking for candidates or sifting through applicants. That's the most up-to-date information for us.
And I would second that. When I'm embarking on a search, I start with who do I know, and who do I know are the people that are in my database. Then my LinkedIn page are also people that I know, and placing an ad for me would be on the LinkedIn careers or jobs page. So you'll see my ad out there. I also, for scraping purposes on the internet, I will do a little bit on Indeed just to get it out there, because then it's then posted out there a little bit further. But LinkedIn really is the place to be and the place to search. And there are ways that you can set up job search alerts on LinkedIn as well as on Google and Indeed. So I would strongly encourage you to do that so that you can be kept up to speed with different opportunities as they become available. That being said, my first go-to is always, who do I know? Who can I think of? And I'm always thinking of, okay, I know this person right away. So how do you get to a person like me or a person like Maura before a job is open? Well, that's probably something we'll talk about in the next, in a few more minutes, but you want to get to know people like us so that you are thought of when opportunities come up, because that is the first place that I know I go to. Maybe Maura, you do as well. Is like, who do you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point, Diane. The first step, the first tool, and before ever going external, is looking internally at our database of, who have we connected with, who could be a fit. And I'm always surprised each year by the number of candidates that we return to who maybe weren't a fit initially in their first application or first go round. Who now have more experience or, have matured in some of their capabilities, who are a fit. So totally agree with Diane. Having that sort of internal network to go to first is really valuable. So if you interview with a company and it's not a fit, like Diane said, I think we'll get to this, but staying in touch, being kept top of mind could mean another opportunity down the road.
Excellent. And kind of moving into it's kind of a segue to our next question in some ways. I think Diane was getting at it. What role does networking play in the job search process? How important is this? And then, yes, how do people connect with you all? Like, what would be appropriate? What are some examples?
Sure. Well, I think this looks different than it did a few months ago. Like we said, I think, there are so many cool networking events throughout the Twin Cities with different affinity group, women's leadership groups, tech groups, young professionals, career changers. Obviously that looks a little bit different now, but I think still taking advantage. I think one of the cool parts of the pandemic that I've seen is certain networking events, panels, or other sort of social Zoom events that I may not have attended in the past due to constraints or location are happening, and they're usually posted on LinkedIn and available via Zoom. A couple months ago, I sat in on an event that was put on by Women Leading in Technology, and they had the CEO of Best Buy, Corey Berry, on that. I never probably would have been able to see her speak just with my day-to-day work and commute, but being able to jump on those things has been great. So taking advantage of those virtual networking opportunities, again, I think LinkedIn is a really good place to start. I think reaching out to someone on LinkedIn, sending them a thoughtfully crafted message, like Diane said, that impression starts from the first note that you send to someone. You know, I probably day-to-day receive 10 to 12 messages on LinkedIn. And so I may not get back to every single person that reaches out, but I think it's perfectly appropriate to reach out and make a connection there. It might be that I see your name and your resume come through, and a week later, the right thing pops up. Just this past week, I saw a former classmate of mine, and she posted that she'd been furloughed due to the pandemic and was looking for new opportunities. So I've reached out to her. We'll be reconnecting later this week. So I think being on those connections radars, you know, maybe making new connections, and then really relying on the network you already have, those relationships you have built throughout your career, education, staying in touch with those folks right now. I think, you know, for me, one of the biggest ways, like I said, is past candidates, that when we have someone through process and it's not a fit, it doesn't result in an offer, that doesn't necessarily mean that person wasn't a great candidate. Maybe they just didn't have the level of experience or a certain tool, or they weren't prepared to speak to a part of their background or skill set. Down the road, there are always opportunities that could be a fit. So keeping in mind that those past interviews or company connections you've made could still be opportunities to lean on. I had a candidate reach out to me really at the beginning of the pandemic, and we hadn't spoken since 2016. So it had been almost 4 years, and she reached out and had 2 really great project opportunities under her belt in that time. And she started with us about a month and a half ago, and is out at a manufacturing client now with us on a project. So you never know. I think just staying in touch, leaving a really positive impression on recruiters, hiring managers, companies, knowing that a no right now is not the end of the road forever. And I've reconnected with many past candidates in this time. So those are a few of my thoughts, but I'm sure Diane has even more on that.
So when you ask the question, what role does networking play in the job search process? Networking is really the #1 source for getting a job. It's been proven over and over again. I can think back of when I had jobs, and if you think back how maybe you got your past jobs, how many of them were because you knew somebody? So it's very, very, very important. So again, looking at your network, your current network, and networking with those people, just letting people know, hey, I'm looking for a job. Let everybody know that you're looking for a job, meaning on your profile with your LinkedIn profile, there's a little hashtag looking for work and the little circle that you can add to your picture if you find that fitting. And you can also add it to your tagline that you are currently looking for a new role. So that is a wonderful way to network by just having it on your LinkedIn profile, because again, as Maura said, we go to LinkedIn a lot. Another thing that she brought up, it's alumni. So if you're looking at a company and you see that there are 7 people from the University of Minnesota, your alum that work there, well, alum tend to like to help other alums. So you might want to ping them, might want to connect with them and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I went to the University of Minnesota, looking at this particular opportunity, would you be able to help me network or have a conversation with me? Absolutely. I would think that alum will be happy to help you. So another way to network you into a job or a company, attending events, not only events that are for your profession, but also charity events or volunteer events. Let everybody know that you are looking for a job, because that's that 7 degrees of separation from you, that somebody knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. And it's the impression that you give, even if you are volunteering at the local animal shelter, bringing your A game, being professional from A to B, because everybody's watching and everybody knows somebody. So professional organizations, charity events, what webinars, what have you, make sure that you're networking while you're attending those events. We talked about LinkedIn and maximizing your profile and putting that I'm currently looking for work. You can also just make a new posting on LinkedIn. I'm currently, a situation of COVID and looking for new opportunity as a post. Please message me with any thoughts on positions for X, Y, Z, of what are you looking for. So put a post out there. And then also when you are at a point where you are a specialist in a particular area or a genre and you know what you want to do, then it is okay to contact persons such as myself. My specialty is executive assistance, but maybe you are in technology or engineering. So go out and find those agencies in town that specialize in the work that you do and say, my name is such and such, here is my resume. I'd like to set up a 20-minute phone call with you to talk a little bit about my background and maybe network with you or get into your database should an opportunity come available. So there's a lot of ways that you can network, but the more people that know that you're looking for a job, the higher the probability that you will actually start getting into some interview activity.
Yeah, I think you bring up some really excellent points. I think it's definitely more than just applying for jobs. It's getting out and emailing people, even picking up the phone and calling folks to be networking that way, and really trying to bring yourself to the eyes and attention of others and letting others know that you are looking for a job and letting everyone know that you're looking, even if it's your family members or friends of friends and so forth. So the more people who know that you're looking, the more folks will help to try to connect you to others. So very excellent points. And so now we've moved in kind of to the open Q&A portion from our audience. And I see we have some questions coming into our Q&A box here. So if you have questions, feel free to enter them into the Q&A box, and we'll do our best to get to as many questions as we can. And sometimes I try to group them in some ways by theme and try to ask the questions more broad-based, but we'll do our best. All right, let's see here. So there's a question here, sort of situation. I've been out of the workforce for a long time with no real reason other than I have had no offers. That's a terrible explanation for my employment gap, but it's the truth. I feel like my time out of work has branded me as unemployable, and honestly, it feels that way. How can I get through this brick wall?
Yeah, that is such a tough spot to be in, and I appreciate you being candid with us. I think that's a fair description. So I think, sort of going off of one thing that we had reflected on earlier, I think a lot of candidates, because of the pandemic, will be in a similar boat where there may have been a gap on their resume, and maybe that's due to furlough or a position being eliminated or ending for another reason. I think what you're doing in that time between is what makes a difference for me as a recruiter. When I know that someone, maybe their role was eliminated in the very beginning of the pandemic, and they took some time to kind of reflect, and then they got to job searching and they signed up for some free online courses and they added a few technologies to their resume. To me, that shows some of that drive and interest and enthusiasm that we talked about earlier, that they didn't just sit back and wait for the next thing to pop up. They really thought about how to be creative in the time between. So that's one idea is, how can you tell that story of the time between? I know you're being, maybe extra candid with us today. Obviously, you'd have maybe a different story you'd share with a recruiter in an actual interview, but thinking about how to share that messaging to say, this position eliminated, I haven't been successful in finding something next. And, here's how I've reflected and what I'm looking for. Maybe also just doing some reflection or working with a trusted, peer or career coach to figure out why haven't these interviews panned out? Why haven't I received offers? And being reflective and strategic about going into your next interview and opportunity. The other thought that comes up for me, just from what I've seen with candidates I've been working with this spring, summer, and now heading into fall, some of those candidates that were, positions were eliminated due to COVID have taken on, part-time or pro bono work with nonprofits or, local volunteer organizations. It's not necessarily a full-time position, but it can be something on their resume that they've picked up in the meantime, a way to continue building skills, add a few more things to their resume, and have something there in that gap to say, I wasn't just sitting around, I was continuing to develop some other skills and maybe flexing a different area that I haven't in the past. So those are some of my thoughts. It's a tough spot to be in, certainly, but I think being reflective about why maybe some of the interviews aren't working out, thinking about how to tell that story of how one position ended and where you've been since, and then maybe finding a way to help build up some of that experience with some pro bono, consulting, part-time work, ways to maybe build that outside of just the traditional full-time route that might not be working right now.
All great points. I don't really have anything other to add. I agree.
Yes, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Looks like the next question here. Do you have any tips for dealing with applicant tracking systems?
Diane, do you want to start this one?
Applicant tracking systems, again, I think, well, it depends on the functionality that the company has set up for their tracking system. Some pay for the real deep search functions that stank and rank from the green candidates to the yellow to the reds. Some don't have the budget to do that, so it's up to the recruiters to read each and every resume and go through it manually. So that being said, if let's presume that they do have the functionality, it's very important that you have the keywords that are listed in the job description for you to then roll up to the top into the green section. So it may be executive assistant, it might be asana programs, and I'm just throwing out some things. It could be CEO support, all of the things that are very key with the job descriptions, the requirements. You will want to have that on your resume somewhere that you're going to lift to the top. So it plays a very big part in stack and ranking. Now, again, if you don't have that functionality, it's left up to me to read through them. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to see those keywords in the resume or in the body of the resume. And last but not least, if you don't exactly have that, let's say the job title, but you have the responsibilities that equal to that job. Say, for example, someone titles an executive assistant, a project assistant, or a project coordinator, but job equally supportive. Then at the bottom of the page, you can always put a keyword list of keywords that will then allow you to go up to the green section in the ATS system, albeit you really do have to have that type of a background, but it just might be termed something differently. But I don't think there's any problem with putting a keyword string at the bottom just for search purposes.
Yeah, nothing really to add for me. I think Diane covered it, that keywords are really the important piece there.
Sort of building off keywords and thinking about tailoring, there's a question here about, well, it says, if resumes are tailored, how do you recommend presenting oneself on LinkedIn for differing opportunities?
Yeah, such a good question. So I think, like I said earlier, sometimes I'm looking at incoming applicants, sometimes I'm going out and trying to find someone in the sea of LinkedIn who could be a fit. So I think it's, again, striking that balance, understanding that you have your own unique experiences and skill sets, but that you also probably have a target and an idea of where you're hoping to go in your career. So my feedback would be, for a LinkedIn profile, tailor it so that it's specific enough that, if you're interested in roles in technology, that you're not going to be being reached out to for people who are hiring for, a totally different role or opportunity. but keep it general enough that, maybe a job that you wouldn't have applied to, a recruiter might see your profile and say, well, this person didn't apply, but based on what I'm seeing, they could be a fit. So again, it's that tricky place in between of keeping it structured and focused enough that you're targeting the right types of opportunities, but general enough that you're not eliminating yourself from consideration. So I think keep your LinkedIn profile up to date, accurate, use those keywords, keep it a relatively well-rounded summary of what you've done, and maybe include somewhere the types of roles that you're targeting. And then when you apply or when you submit a specific resume or cover letter or message a recruiter about a specific opportunity, that's, I think, when you can be a little more tailored in your approach and call out the actual position you're applying to. One thing I've run into on LinkedIn, maybe I'm going through a series of applicants for a project management associate position, and some of the applicants have on their LinkedIn profile or resume, targeting positions in marketing or retail. Well, that's totally fine, and that's no problem. That makes total sense. But if you're going to call out specific areas that you're targeting, make sure that they align to the roles you're applying to. If I see that a potential, project management associate is actually most interested in a different role, I might be less inclined to reach out. So again, striking that balance of keeping yourself open to opportunities and then tailoring once you're reaching out about a specific opportunity, tailoring your resume, going to a specific employer.
For me, at my level of, there isn't a lot of tailoring that I see with my executive assistants, other than I sometimes need to call out when I speak to them to don't assume that people know what you do. For example, if you support a board in addition to your job, make sure you call that out and be specific about that particular task, without getting too granular with some of the mundane tasks, like, I don't know, something that's just very minimal. But make sure that when you're looking at a position and at a title and at a job description, that although you have the same one, make sure that those high-level skills and those high-level duties are articulated appropriately on your resume to mirror the description of the job that you want, or the one that you aspire to, if you have the skill set in your current background.
That's an excellent point.
Otherwise, save it for the cover letter. I saw that there was a question about cover letters. I'm going to say, you know what? I love a strong cover letter. And I'll tell you why it's even more important now than ever, is because cover letters show your communication skills in written form. And now more than ever, our communication skills, because we're remote, have to be even more on point. And so a well-written cover letter, to me, that articulates your background is very important. And it will, if you two resumes put together, a strong cover letter versus one that's just put together with thank you and here's my information, it's going to mean something. So I might have digressed a little bit more, but
no, I did see that question there about cover letters and whether they were important or not, if they're even looked at. And Maura, would you say you look at the cover letter?
So I maybe look at cover letters less than Diane, though I totally agree with what she's shared. For me, what it typically comes down to, because I'm going through such a high volume of applicants a day, if I see a really strong resume, that makes total sense. I see, oh, I totally understand why they're applying to us. I see why this could be a fit. Maybe I'll give the cover letter a quick glance, but if I have what I need from the resume, I'll reach out. If I look at a resume and it doesn't totally make sense to me, maybe this person is jumping from a career in the nonprofit world to the corporate world, or maybe they were in higher education and now they want to be in technology. Then I'll go to the cover letter to understand, what's the story here? Why did this person, who might not on paper look like a perfect fit, why did they apply? And maybe in their cover letter, they answer that well for me. And they say, after 5 years in higher education, I've learned that the part I love most is using the systems and technologies in my role. I'm excited to embark on a technology career. That helps close the gap for me and maybe would make me more inclined to reach out. So for me, I might not read every single cover letter, but especially when there's a gap maybe between your resume and the role you're applying to, that can help tell me the story of why it might be a fit.
Yeah, and it looks like there's, oh, Dan, did you want to add to that one?
Nope, that's perfect.
Yeah, it looks like sort of talking about talking about one story. Is there a good tactic to post that you've been furloughed or laid off and are currently looking? And so it doesn't seem like that is a very targeted tactic if you share that with your whole network. And so what are your suggestions about sharing that information? How do you share it in what formats? Your cover letter, your LinkedIn profile? How do you tell that story? Do you share it?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, you know, you can send messages on LinkedIn to your friends saying, hey, guess what? I've been furloughed. Perfectly okay, because they're your friends. They're people you've worked with. They understand. I think that's appropriate. You may not want to post that you're furloughed in a LinkedIn post, but you'll want to put in there, you're looking for a new opportunity, open new opportunities, and, you know, please let me know if you know anything. You don't have to say the word furloughed or anything about COVID, but just put out there that you're looking.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I've seen some really thoughtful ways of it being done on LinkedIn to say, you know, my time with company A has ended. I've really appreciated my years here. Now I'm looking for a new opportunity. And that's what comes across my LinkedIn. That's what led me to this candidate I mentioned earlier that, oh, this candidate is looking after, you know, 3 years with a company. I'll reach out to her. So yeah, I think being thoughtful, reaching out to your network, like Diane mentioned earlier on LinkedIn, you can turn on that, you know, open to work functionality so that people know that you're job seeking. The other thing I've noticed is that in interviews, I think some candidates are really hesitant to share that they've been furloughed or laid off or their position was eliminated, but please know that you are in good company. Probably every single candidate I've connected with in the last couple months is in the same boat. They weren't planning to be job seeking and now they are, and not on their own terms, but nothing to be ashamed of. We understand. And as recruiters, we're grateful that there's so much, you know, great talent on the market that you're all seeking new opportunities. And so feel free to be candid about that. I think as much as you can, speak highly or at least neutrally about your past employer. Don't say anything that you know, might be construed as bad about them, but being candid about how things ended, I think is just fine.
So there's a different question here. What are the advantages of being an older, experienced applicant, and how do I convince prospective employers I have a lot to offer? I'm getting practically no interviews.
Well, I think I wouldn't necessarily point to age as the reason that you aren't getting interviews. I would want to do an assessment of what you're applying for, what your resume and what your marketing looks like when you are attempting to find a position. It's really hard. I mean, there probably is some bias out there with age, unfortunately, but who would want to work for a company that's like that anyway? So, but I would really want to look at the whole marketing package and see, you know, from A to Z, what you're doing, what you're applying for, what your resume and your cover letter and what your interview, how it went, what you said. So I think you have to really do a deeper dive and really not focus on the age, because if you're focusing on age and thinking it's age, then it's going to somehow, I think, subconsciously work out that way. But I think age is just a number, and you know, it's about your experience and your fit with the job, regardless of anything, any part of your diverse skill set that you bring to the job.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we always talk about in our organization years of relevant experience. So Boom Lab specifically focuses on anyone with 0 to 5 years of relevant experience. So certainly that means many recent grads. Sometimes that means younger people, but not always. We've had career changers. We have a consultant in St. Louis who spent his first 20 years of his career in substance abuse counseling, and then got a graduate degree in technology and is now in a security analyst role with us. So we really speak to it in terms of years of relevant experience versus age. So, my thoughts in addition to what Diane shared is just ensure you're targeting the right roles. Look at, really how many years of relevant experience do you have, and seek out the opportunities that align with that. And, maybe some things you've applied to are too junior or too senior. I know that's a tough spot to be in when you're overqualified for some opportunities, but maybe just honing in on the right number of years of relevant experience to target.
Thanks. Sorry, I was reading through all these questions. So many questions. I'm like, which one do I pick? Okay, so sorry, I got a little. Well, this is I saw some questions about LinkedIn and some folks who may not feel comfortable either posting about themselves online, sharing about themselves online, and advice for how they can still somewhat remain private and not have to put their information on the web. So thinking about, how can they be being private but still embarking on a job search process that helps connect them with others. What advice would you have for this person?
That's a tough one because LinkedIn is such a go-to for recruiters. And you can't get a job without being on LinkedIn, let's face it. But I think you'll need to work your other measures, your other mediums a little bit more, such as networking a bit more. But if you can, put at least just the bare minimums, your name,
right,
your education, your job dates, that's it. You don't have to have 1,000 connections. You don't have to elaborate, but at least have it up there. And if that's not comfortable for you, then, I think you'll have to work more on your networking to get, because again, it's such a go-to for, it's such a go-to for recruiters. I don't know if you have anything else to add, Maura, on that.
Yeah, I'm thinking all those same things, Diane. I think, other ways I've seen people maybe minimize the information that's out there is only include, publicly the first initial of their last name. So maybe I would just be, Maura B on LinkedIn. You don't have to put a profile picture there. I think it helps just as you come up in searches to kind of tie a face to the name, but certainly, no need to have a picture if you don't want to. I saw maybe it was this question or tied to it. You don't have to, and you shouldn't use LinkedIn like Facebook. You don't have to be posting about your personal beliefs or ideas or thought systems. You don't have to be commenting on everyone else's posts. Actually, I think sometimes some of that extra chatter can be a little bit distracting. So feel free to have a LinkedIn profile, to add connections, apply to roles. You don't have to be on it every day chatting with people on your feed. I think there's certainly no need to do that. But like Diane said, LinkedIn is such a valuable tool that at least having something there, even if it's first name, last initial, and some sort of information about your experience or what you're looking for. For me, when I'm searching, the more robust a profile, the more I can get from someone's, initial LinkedIn page, the more likely I am to reach out. I can assess there whether they're a fit or not and schedule that intro call. So just being mindful about, as much as you put out there could be that link to a potential recruiter. So decide what you're comfortable with, but it certainly is a valuable tool.
So we have about a minute left. I'm curious to know any last words of advice or thoughts you want to share or other information you have to share with our audience members today.
I am just amazed that time flew by so quickly. I think my last piece of advice, something I've been sharing with candidates, is that you do have a unique set of skills and experience to bring to employers. So certainly this is a challenging time. I can imagine it's easy to get frustrated and exhausted by the process, but know that your unique skill sets and talents are your advantage in this market. And we're certainly still out here looking. I'm connecting probably with at least a handful of candidates every day. So figuring out how to highlight those skills, target opportunities that could be a match, and continue to stay connected to those in your network, and know that the right opportunity will come up. But taking time to reflect and stay positive, and the right thing is out there.
So I completely agree. I think everybody has something amazing to bring to the world, and sometimes you have difficulties identifying exactly what that is. So if you do, ask your friends, ask your family, ask your mom. They know what you're great at. You get the help that you need if you're having difficulties, but know that sometimes you have to go through a lot of different interviews before you find exactly what it is that you're supposed to be doing, but it's out there. And when you realize at the time you get that offer, you'll know why you got the no's. And every no that you get is one no closer to a yes. So keep that in mind. But keep working at it, stay positive, and you'll land the job of your dreams.
Thank you so much, Maura and Diane, for your words of wisdom and advice, and for being here today with us. Just want to thank everyone for tuning in today. And as a reminder for folks who are looking to maybe work on career clarity, as they say, or gaining more perspective on their interests, or if they're in the midst of career transitioning, maybe interested in our masterclass job search strategies, or our masterclass LinkedIn, knowing how to amp up your profile and network with others. So those will also be great opportunities for anyone tuning in today. And to find out more about that, you can visit the website on your screen. And I'll be sharing the recording of this webinar with all registrants within 2 to 3 business days, and any other additional information that was shared here today. So thank you everyone for your time. Have a great day, and see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.